They laughed, didn't they? Loud, confident, proud. Like your silence was a punchline and your pain was entertainment. They grinned when you stumbled. They whispered when you broke. But here's the part they never thought through. Pain builds things. Laughter can't. While they were busy running their mouths, you were bleeding in silence, collecting scars like armor. And now they're quiet. Now they watch. Because the same silence they mocked became the silence they fear. Let me tell you something, kid. The world doesn't clap for the broken until they come back dangerous. They cheer the loud ones, the shiny ones, the fake smiles with empty chests. But the ones who rise from the ashes, the ones who eat betrayal for breakfast and drink rejection like it's water, those ones, they make the ground shake. You were never meant to blend in with them. You were meant to haunt their memory, and you will if you stop playing by their rules. Let's rewind. Remember when you gave your best and they still laughed? That wasn't weakness. That was proof your light scared them. People mock what they don't understand. And you were a walking mirror. You showed them everything they failed to become. So they laughed, tried to reduce you to a joke, hoped that if they made noise loud enough, you'd disappear in it. But the thing about real ones, they don't vanish, they evolve. You learn to bleed without making a sound. You learn to walk with wounds they couldn't even carry. And in that silence, the one they used to laugh at, you built yourself into a threat. Now they go quiet, not because they changed, but because you did. You see, this world isn't built on fairness. It's built on dominance. Not the kind that screams, but the kind that moves in silence. You've been underestimated, overlooked, stepped on like a sidewalk crack. But let me ask you, did any of that kill you? No, it carved you. It stripped the softness and replaced it with steel. They tried to shame you into quitting, humiliate you into silence. But what they didn't realize is that silence becomes a weapon in the right hands, and now you're holding that weapon. You don't owe them words. You owe them consequences. Don't speak, act. Don't explain, prove. You owe nothing to those who laughed at your pain. Not a smile, not a tear, not even a goodbye. You were the one they mocked, right? And now, you're the one they watch. How's that for irony? All those little laughs. Where are they now? Gone. Because fear doesn't make noise. Regret is a quiet monster, and it sits with them now, heavy, cold, whispering your name every time they remember what they did. That's the power of walking away, of leveling up in silence. They expected you to fall apart, but you built a new version of yourself from the rubble they left behind. One that doesn't need validation. One that doesn't ask for permission to exist. You're not here to be liked anymore. You're here to be respected. And if that respect comes with fear, good. Let them taste the silence they created. You're not bitter. You're focused. You're not angry. You're aware. And that awareness, that's your edge. Keep it. Nurture it. Let it grow into something that walks past them like they never existed. You ever notice how the loudest ones vanish first when things get real? They bark, they giggle, they act like life's a playground until the storm comes. Then silence. Ghosts, cowards hiding behind old laughter. You're not like them. You've stared too long into the fire to be scared of smoke. They laughed when you were down because that's when they felt taller. That's how weak people survive, by stepping on those who are crawling. But they never expected you to stand up. That's the part that breaks them. Not your words, not your revenge, your existence. You being here, better, colder, sharper, is the loudest revenge. And here's the twisted beauty of it. The ones who laughed at your pain are the same ones who now dread your presence. They flinch at your name. They check your page. They talk about you when you're not around. Because deep down, they know. They know they made a monster out of the wrong person. And now that monster wears silence like a crown. You think your suffering was for nothing? Nah. That pain was tuition. Life charges a heavy price for real strength, and you paid it in full. Every betrayal, every fake friend, every night you couldn't sleep, every time your heart was heavy and your mind was louder than the room, that was training. That was transformation. The pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to rewrite you. It came to erase the soft version of you. The one who begged, who waited, who hoped for decency. That version had to die. Because this world doesn't respond to kindness unless it's backed by power. You showed them mercy. They showed you games. You gave them loyalty. They gave you lies. And now you've learned the equation. No more chasing, no more explaining, no more asking, just building quietly, ruthlessly, alone if needed. And that silence you're walking in, it's not emptiness, it's focus. They used to laugh because they didn't think you were capable of becoming anything beyond what you were. They saw you as permanent, stuck, predictable, weak. They thought if they laughed hard enough, you'd stay in place just to prove them wrong. But you didn't stay. You vanished. You went quiet. And that silence, it confused them. Because people don't expect healing to be loud. They think if you're not posting about it, talking about it, crying about it, then you must still be broken. But healing is a cold process. It's lonely. It's silent. It happens in the shadows, while they sleep on the same mattress of lies they tried to cover you with. You were bleeding in the dark, while they were laughing in the light. But now, you're the one glowing. And they're choking on the silence you left behind. Look around now. Who's still standing? Who's still pushing through the wreckage with eyes that don't blink anymore? You. Because you stopped needing their approval. You stopped needing their claps. And once you stop needing, you become unstoppable. That's the secret. It's not about becoming loved. It's about becoming unfazed. They can hate you. They can forget you. They can twist your story all they want, but they can't stop your rise. That's the most terrifying part for them. That no matter what they said, what they did, how much they laughed, they couldn't break you. They delayed you maybe, but they didn't stop you. And now, you're a reminder, a walking consequence. Every step you take, every win you earn, every level you unlock, it echoes in their memory. You are the proof that the underestimated don't stay down. They get up different. They get up dangerous. And that, my friend, is why they're quiet now. They're quiet now because they see something they can't comprehend. Control. Not control over them. That's childish. Control over you. Over your reactions. Over your emotions. Over your damn peace. You ain't yelling. You ain't throwing shade. You're not out here begging for justice. No. You're just calm. And that calm is shaking their world to the core. Because silence like yours, it ain't weakness. It's calculation. It's awareness. It's the sign of someone who stopped needing to convince people and started building a world too high for them to reach. They laughed when they thought you were below them. But you outgrew the whole damn room. And now, they sit in corners, whispering your name like a ghost story they hope doesn't come true. That's what happens when you stop performing for them. When you stop explaining yourself. When you take the pain, the disrespect, the betrayal, and weaponize it. Let me make it real clear. Pain is either gonna break you or build you. There's no middle ground. The ones who mocked you, they broke under less. You turned silence into strategy. You turned solitude into construction. While they partied, you plotted. While they talked, you trained. And now they're scared because you made it out. You made it past the phase where most people fold, and you did it without them. That's what keeps them up at night. Not your success, but the fact that they didn't help build it. They had front row seats to your downfall, but they didn't expect a sequel, especially not one where you were the villain with the plan, the one walking back with scars, not to beg, but to conquer. And here's the twisted thing. They want to clap now. They want to act like they believed in you, like they were there, but silence remembers. And yours? It's a damn vault. Now, hear this, and hear it clearly. The reason you're still haunted by their laugh is because part of you still wants to prove something, but you owe them nothing, not a damn thing. They laughed when you were human. Now, you're something else, something colder, smarter. And that version of you, it doesn't need applause. It doesn't need eyes watching or mouths talking. It just needs motion. Every step you take now is a statement. Every breath you take in peace is a slap to the noise they threw at you. They said you were weak. You didn't argue. You just waited. And now, your existence alone feels like revenge. Because nothing hurts more than watching the one they doubted become the one they can't touch. That's power. That's what silence builds. Not pity, not approval. Power. Real, silent, undeniable power. They thought the story was over when you disappeared. But what they didn't know is that disappearance isn't defeat. It's transformation. You weren't lost. You were upgrading. That laugh they threw. It echoed in your chest. Not because it was true, but because you hadn't yet become the one you were meant to be. That laugh was the last sound they'd make before your silence took over. And now they're watching from behind screens, behind fake smiles, behind old memories they pretend to have let go. But they remember. They always remember the ones they tried to break. And the silence you carry now, it screams louder than all their noise ever did. You're not walking for revenge anymore. You're walking in mastery of yourself, of your emotions, of your damn worth. And that, right there, is why they're quiet. Let me tell you something that most people are too soft to admit. People don't regret what they did to you. They regret that you survived it. That's the truth, raw and unfiltered. They don't feel bad for hurting you. They feel disturbed by the fact that their hurt didn't destroy you. Because your survival calls them out. It exposes them. You walking around healed, cold, and wiser. That's a mirror they can't look into. And that silence you wear like a weapon, it's not emptiness, it's intelligence. You realize something they never will. When you stop giving explanations, you start giving consequences. They used to laugh because they thought you needed them. Because back then, you reacted, you cried, you tried to understand why. But now, you've outgrown questions. You've outgrown the need for closure. You don't chase apologies. You let them live with the echo of your silence and the ghost of your absence. That's power they'll never understand. Let them sit in the silence they created. Let them wonder what's behind your quiet. Because trust me, that wondering, that confusion, it eats them alive. They thought they were the main characters, the ones calling the shots. They thought if they laughed hard enough, it'd erase the truth. But the truth has a way of surviving. And the version of you that they see now, it doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove. You're not trying to be liked. You're not hoping they see your worth. You already saw it yourself. And that kind of self-awareness, it's rare, dangerous, unstoppable. It means they can't guilt trip you, can't bait you, can't pull you back into the drama. They talk. You build. They stalk. You elevate. And every time they speak your name, they feel that sting. The sting of knowing they lost access to someone they thought would never leave. You don't owe anyone your softness anymore. that part of you, it was a gift, and they treated it like trash. So now, you walk with sharp edges, not because you're bitter, but because you're done bleeding for people who laughed when you were cut open. You don't hand out explanations to the same mouths that laughed at your struggle. You don't give energy to the same hands that let you fall. Let them choke on the silence. Let them drown in the gap your absence carved, because you're not going back, not for closure, not for one last word, not for their validation. You've already won, not because you're ahead of them, but because you stopped running in their race. Your path, it's different now. It's lonely, yes. Quiet, absolutely. But it's yours. And that's something they'll never have. You see, when they laughed, they didn't just mock your struggle, they revealed themselves. They showed you who they really are when it's not about them. When someone laughs at your downfall, what they're really saying is, I feel better when you're beneath me. And that's not someone worth explaining yourself to. That's not someone you fight to keep. That's someone you bury in your silence and move the hell on. Because revenge isn't about screaming, crying, or proving. It's about evolving so silently, so masterfully, that the same people who thought they could control your narrative now have to watch you write it without them. From a distance, they can't cross. So when you walk, walk proud. When you stay quiet, do it with fire behind your eyes. And when they ask themselves why you're not saying anything, just remember, they laughed then. So why are they quiet now? Because they know. They know they lit a fire they can't put out. And now, they're just hoping you don't look back. You ever notice how silence makes people uncomfortable? Not because they don't hear anything, but because they start hearing everything they tried to ignore. Their own guilt, their own cowardice, their own damn failure. That's what your silence does to them now. It turns the mirror around. They see themselves, not the version they pretend to be online. The real version, the one who laughed at someone bleeding and thought there'd never be a consequence. But you became the consequence. And the craziest part? You never raised your voice. You never started a war. You just stopped explaining. You stopped showing up where you weren't respected. You stopped answering calls that only came when they needed something. And now your absence speaks louder than anything your presence ever did. That's the price of playing with someone who was loyal when they had nothing. When you rise, and you will rise, it hurts their ego, because they know they had front row seats to your lowest and still chose to laugh. Now, they're standing outside the arena, tickets in hand, praying you don't remember. But here's what really burns them. You don't even hate them. You're just done. There's no rage in your silence. There's no obsession, just distance detachment, indifference. And to people who live off attention, that's lethal, because they wanted to be the villain in your story, the one you fought, cried over, tried to fix. But you didn't give them that. You walked. You chose peace over revenge. And that kind of power, it can't be faked. You had every reason to break, to scream, to burn everything down. But you didn't. You turned inward. You went dark. And in that darkness, you found the version of you they never expected. The version that doesn't flinch. The version that doesn't call back. The version that doesn't care if they miss you, because you've stopped missing them. Let them live with it. Let them feel the weight of your silence, because every time they remember the way they laughed, they'll hear how quiet it is now. No reply, no reaction, just echoes. And those echoes will whisper the truth. You became everything they said you'd never be, and you did it without them. They tried to dim you. You became the flame. They tried to bury you. You became the storm. And now they scroll through your life from the shadows, pretending they don't care, when their whole curiosity is addicted to your glow. That's the price of betrayal. Watching someone you tried to destroy thrive without your presence. And deep down, they know. The reason they're quiet now is because you're no longer theirs to laugh at. You outgrew the arena. You outgrew them. This world has a twisted way of teaching the real ones. It breaks them in places nobody sees, then watches what they build from the wreckage. You built something unstoppable, and it wasn't built from praise. It was built from silence, from long nights, from heavy days, from every laugh that stabbed a little too deep. You built it out of memory, out of rage, out of a hunger that no applause can feed. And now, you're walking with that in your chest, not as pain, but as power. Let them keep pretending. Let them keep watching. The real ones don't clap while you're climbing. They go silent when you make it to the top. And now, you're above them. And that silence, it's the sound of fear dressed like respect. There's a certain silence that feels like thunder, and that's the one following your name now. They don't speak it out loud, but you can feel it. In the way they pause when someone mentions you. In the way their eyes shift, nervous, like they're not sure if they should admire you or feel guilty. That's what growth does. It forces people to confront the versions of themselves that failed you. You're no longer that person who sat at the table trying to make conversations out of disrespect, trying to build bridges with people who were busy setting fire to your side. You walked away with nothing but your name. And now that name weighs more than any explanation ever could. They laughed back then because they didn't think silence could bite. But silence sharpened your fangs. And now you smile differently, not out of joy, but out of knowing. Knowing they don't matter anymore. Knowing they lost something they can't replace. You. They thought you were replaceable, didn't they? Thought they'd find another one like you. One who gave like you, who forgave like you, who stayed like you. But what they found was emptiness in every room they walked into, a little less light in every face they met. Because people like you don't grow on trees. You're built from loyalty, from sleepless nights, from holding people down when you had nothing left for yourself. And once you stop offering that, the silence is deafening. You became the sound of everything they lost. Every moment they chose ego over empathy. And now, they can't even laugh. Because the joke isn't funny anymore. The joke turned around, looked them in the eye, and walked away with peace they'll never know. That's the scariest thing for them. Not that you left, but that you never looked back. They ask themselves now, was it worth it? Was the laugh worth the loss? And the answer is always no. But they'll never admit it. People like that never do. They pretend. They perform. They post quotes about self-growth and peace, like they weren't the chaos in your life, like they didn't treat your loyalty like a game. But behind those filtered smiles and hollow captions, there's a question eating away at them. How did you survive? And you did more than survive. You thrived, quietly, brutally, without needing to tell the world. That's the kind of growth that turns pain into prophecy. And you? You're living proof that the storm doesn't win. The one who walks through it in silence does. Keep walking. Don't explain. Don't defend. You don't need to clear your name in the minds of those who stained it. Let them wonder. Let them sit in the stillness and search for laughter that doesn't come anymore. You gave them your best, and they spat it out. You gave them access, and they used it as leverage. Now they want understanding? Nah. They can understand this. You're not the one to play with. Not anymore. You're not bitter. You're better. And that difference, it lives in your silence, in your choices, in your peace, in your eyes when you pass by and don't flinch, in the smile that doesn't need a crowd, in the calm that tells the loudest stories. Because you know now, they laughed then, and they're quiet now. Because your silence did what your words never could. It ended the game. There's a point where you stop waiting for apologies and start collecting power. And that point, that's where you're standing now. You're not the same person they laughed at. That person is gone. Buried beneath all the nights you spent figuring out how to keep breathing when the weight of betrayal sat on your chest like a curse. You didn't get over it. You outgrew it. You didn't forget the laughs. You just made sure they'd echo in your victories. And now every step you take, every boundary you enforce, every move in silence, it's a response louder than anything they ever said. They tried to measure your worth by your mistakes, by your breakdowns, by your silence. But the version of you they tried to destroy is now the blueprint for the monster they fear. A quiet monster. A precise one. One that doesn't bark, but bites with success. They don't laugh anymore because they know. They know that silence means evolution. It means strategy. It means you're watching, not reacting, not posting, not explaining, just watching. And that terrifies people who rely on chaos to stay relevant in your life. You used to chase clarity. Now you walk in mystery. You used to beg for peace. Now you are the peace, and they can't stand it, because it means you took back everything. Your time, your worth, your mind, and now they're stuck with echoes of who you used to be, trying to start conversations with a ghost. But you don't haunt people. You let your absence do that. And trust me, it does. Every laugh they once threw feels like a chain around their neck now, because deep down, they know you didn't deserve any of it. And that realization, it burns slowly, quietly, the same way you healed. Don't ever question your silence. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking distance means bitterness. No, distance means knowledge. It means clarity. When you know who someone is, when they show you their fangs while smiling, you don't stay. You disappear. Not to hurt them, but to protect your future from them. You gave chances. You gave love. You gave your damn soul trying to fix things that were never meant to be held. Now you give nothing. And that nothingness, it echoes louder than every joke they made, every whisper they shared behind your back. You were never the joke. You were the one with the heart, the loyalty, the presence, and they'll never find that again, not in this lifetime. So let them wonder. Let them scroll and stalk and sit in silence, trying to find the next version of you in people who can't even spell loyalty. Let them look at your life like a test they failed and can't retake. Because the truth is, they never deserved a second chance at the version of you they broke the first time. And now they don't even get access to the silence. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You need momentum. Forward. Always forward. While they sit stuck in the memory of what they lost, you build legacies in places they can't reach. That's how it works now. You don't speak. You move. You don't cry. You learn. You don't react. You evolve. And that evolution, it's louder than any comeback could ever be. Let me break it to you raw. They don't hate you. They hate your strength. The kind of strength that doesn't scream or break things or beg for understanding. Number the quiet kind. The scary kind. The kind that walks away without a sound and never looks back. They laughed because they thought you'd never find that version of you. They mocked your tears, your stumbles, your loyalty, because it made them feel stronger. That's how weak people operate. They only rise when someone else falls. But you You flipped the script. You turned every insult into a stepping stone, every betrayal into blueprint, every laugh into a warning bell. And now, here you are, not because they helped, but because they hurt. Because pain either paralyzes or powers you. And you chose power. That's why they're quiet now. Because you're not chasing anymore. You're choosing. You don't chase people who left you bleeding. You don't chase people who saw your soul cracking and handed you silence. You don't chase those who laughed at your collapse and now post quotes about peace. They wanted to break you, then watch you keep loving them. But something in you snapped, didn't it? Something inside said, enough. And that moment changed everything. Because that was the moment you stopped being the victim and started becoming the storm. And now, you're moving different. You speak less. You observe more. You walk lighter, but with heavier purpose. That's why they stay silent now. Because they know they're no longer in the presence of the same person they used to dismiss. That person, that soft, hopeful, open one, gone. And in their place stands someone who doesn't seek attention, someone who commands it without a single word. People always laugh at what they don't understand, but they go quiet when it grows into something they can't control. That's the phase you're in now. You're not loud about your moves, but your moves are loud. They echo, and those echoes haunt them. Because every time they see you rise, it reminds them of how they tried to bury you. Every time you level up, it reminds them that they weren't the reason. They were the test. They were the lesson. They were the pressure that forged something greater than anything they've ever been. And that realization, it doesn't bring them peace. It brings them silence. That awkward, choking, guilty silence. The kind that follows after you laugh too loud at the wrong joke and realize the joke was on you all along. So don't break the silence. Let it speak. Let it do the damage your words never could. Let them keep pretending they've moved on while they secretly check if you've noticed. Let them keep their distance, not because they want to, but because they have to. You've become untouchable, not because you built walls, but because you became so whole, so complete, that their presence no longer fits. You don't need them to clap. You don't need them to call. You don't need them to say, I was wrong. The silence already said it for them. It screamed it. It burned it into their memory. You survived everything they thought would kill you. And now, you're the ghost they can't stop seeing. The question they can't stop asking. The silence they can't stop hearing. They'll never admit it, but your silence is the loudest thing in their life now. Louder than their fake laughs. Louder than their new distractions. Louder than the lies they tell themselves when they say, it didn't matter. Because if it didn't matter, why do they keep watching you from behind shadows? Why does your name still taste bitter in their mouth? Why does your absence feel heavier than your presence ever did? See, the thing about silence, real, earned silence, is that it becomes a mirror. And when people look into that mirror, they don't see you. They see what they did, who they were, and what they lost. You became a walking reminder of everything they took for granted, and it kills them quietly every single day. That's why they're silent, not out of peace, out of guilt, out of fear, out of the realization that they laughed while you were building, and now they can't even look you in the eye. And you've reached a level where your peace is non-negotiable. You don't show up to prove you've changed. You don't entertain old connections to fill space. You've learned how to be full on your own. And that terrifies them, because they thought you needed them. They thought you were desperate for validation, that your heart was a vending machine they could punch when they were bored. But what they didn't realize is that love, real loyalty, real presence, doesn't beg to stay. It walks when it's not valued. And that walk, it's what they hear every night when the noise fades, when the crowd's gone, when the phones go dark. That's when the silence comes back. That's when your name shows up like a ghost at the door of their guilt. Let them live in it. Let them sink in it. Because you're not coming back to fix it. You're not returning to explain how it hurt. You already did that. With your patience, with your forgiveness, with your presence. You explained yourself 1,000 times in the way you showed up, in the way you stayed, in the way you gave when they gave nothing. And now, you don't owe them anything. Not a text, not a warning, not even a cold goodbye. You left with dignity, with silence, with everything they never deserved. And that's what destroys them. Because they know they'll never find it again. People like you don't come in pairs. You were the lesson. And some people never recover from losing a lesson like you. Now, you're the one they whisper about. Not because you failed, but because you didn't. Because you made it through the mud they hoped would drown you. You walked through fire and came out the other side wearing calm like armor. And that's not just growth. That's evolution. They wanted a response. You gave them distance. They wanted chaos. You gave them silence. They wanted to see you fall apart. You rebuilt piece by quiet piece until nothing from the past could touch you. You think they're done watching? They never stopped. The same ones who laughed at your fall now monitor your rise like it's a countdown to their shame. Because you didn't just change. You leveled up. You became someone they can't reach, can't label, can't manipulate. And the silence between you now, it's not awkward. It's divine. It's judgment. And it's permanent.